there had been quite a buzz at the SCP Foundation when only a few days ago, word had spread of a possibly anomalous archaeological dig. Excavations at a redacted location in the Middle East had unearthed what appeared to be an ancient shrine, with a large stone tablet as its centerpiece, inscribed with ruins of a language lost to the ages. Now, normally, this wouldn't be nearly enough to attract the interest of the Foundation, especially without an overtly anomalous component to the shrine. Usually, this would pass unnoticed as just a slightly interesting discovery that could perhaps make its way to a museum. But along with the tablet were a pair of carvings on the surface of the stone shrine. These depicted a pair of figures, seemingly rivals, that were locked together in an endless cycle of conflict. And that was what caught the collective eye of the Foundation. The figures in these carvings seemed to bear a very close, almost uncanny resemblance to SCP-073 and SCP-076, better known, respectively, as Cain and Abel. While the carvings were too large to be transported in their entirety, the stone tablet bearing its inscription was requisitioned by the SCP Foundation, and almost immediately after it arrived, the buzz surrounding it died down, focus shifting to one of what was considered the far bolder and more exciting anomalies. But one researcher, by the name of Isaac Graves, remained solely focused on the mysterious tablet. Researcher Graves was determined to be the one who discovered the connection between this stone and both SCP-073 and SCP-076. Many had long suspected that this pair of anomalous immortals were related, brothers even. Perhaps this tablet and the shrine it was found in held the key to proving once and for all if that long-standing theory was indeed true. Of course, the biggest obstacle standing in Graves' way was nobody knew how to read what had been inscribed on the tablet. The language was runic, and so many thousands of years old that there was no way of translating it, or at least no quick way. Understanding what was written on the stone was going to take some time. Several years of tireless research passed. With every day, researcher Graves spent studying the tablet, feeling like a step closer to revealing its secrets. He had to become fluent in all the languages spoken in the region where the shrine was first discovered, along with all the variations and dialects of each. Then it was a case of working backwards, finding the ancient roots of each of these modern patterns of speech and writing. And eventually, after at last discovering the right linguistic branch, going through the inscription word by word to translate it. It was only when he stepped back and read the tablet in its entirety that Graves understood what he was truly looking at. Realization dawned on him. The researcher turned and barreled through the facility corridors. He demanded to speak urgently with the site director, the senior research staff, and anyone and everyone in authority who would listen. And all because what researcher Graves had found could render all prior study of two prolific anomalies completely null and void. He believed that the tablet described the true, tragic origin of both Cain and Abel. As Graves gathered his various superiors, he recounted what he had learned from the tablet. Years and years ago, many millennia before the dawn of modern civilization, there had lived an isolated family. They lived in a small rural homestead, maintained a decent amount of farmland, and traded crops and livestock with traders from a nearby township in order to survive. Two sons were eventually born to a mother and father whose names were forgotten to the annals of history. But their sons' names, however, would not only live on in legend, but would one day refer to a pair of anomalous individuals. Of course, as most of the Foundation higher-ups in the room quickly guessed, the two brothers were named Cain and Abel. Now, according to the legend researcher Graves had translated from the tablet, Cain was the family's firstborn son, and for a time the pride and joy of his mother and father. As he got older and reached an age where he was able to, Cain began to help his father tend to the farmland around their home. Until one day, Cain's mother fell pregnant again, with yet another son. However, the birth of this new child was fraught with far more difficulty, and sadly claimed the life of the boy's mother. As his father held his newborn younger brother in his arms, Cain stood by his mother's side as she passed away. His father named the new child Abel and raised him the best as he could. However, the loss of his wife had stricken him with grief, which took a toll on him as the years rolled on and Abel grew up. It seemed with every passing day, as the young boy grew into a man, time had the opposite effect on his father. He became frail, unable to farm any longer, causing Cain to take up maintaining the crops in his father's increasing absence, until one day the father of the two boys fell ill. Eventually succumbing to sickness, he too died, reunited with his wife, but leaving the pair of brothers alone with only each other. The final bit of wisdom their father had imparted to Cain and Abel was to trust in the old man on the hill. Sure enough, a figure would often appear looking down at the valley where they lived. According to their father, this man was the Creator, the one who had made the world around them, all the heavens, and every part of the universe's majesty. He could control life and death. Every force of nature only existed and behaved in accordance with the Creator's design. And before his eventual passing, Cain and Abel's father had told his two sons that if they made a small sacrifice to the Creator, then he would provide for them and watch over the brothers. And so, following their father's wishes, Cain and Abel would regularly make their journey up the nearby hill to where the old man resided. Sometimes he would speak with them, friendly conversing while the two men made certain to be as polite as they knew how to be. They would present the Creator with goats, sheep, and all manner of livestock that they kept on their farm, their offering to him in exchange for plentiful harvests and the safe passage of their mother and father into the great beyond. The Creator would tell either Cain or Abel to kill their offering, alternating between each of the brothers every time. According to the stone tablet, back then, this was in a time before man had learned how to kill another man. Not a single person had ever murdered another, but that was soon to change. As the brothers grew up, Abel reaching his 20s and Cain just slightly older than that, they continued to work on their homestead. Cain was still tending to his parents' land, farming crops to feed them both and sell at market. It was a hard, laborious life, the heat of an unforgiving sun bearing down on him in the fields. Cain loathed it. Every day was exhausting, but he knew if he stopped, then he and his brother would perish. Abel, meanwhile, saw to the animals, becoming a shepherd. In contrast to Cain's attitude towards farming, Abel seemed to rather enjoy his work, herding the cattle. He had a good command over them. They listened to what he said, and that seemed, at least to Cain, to make his younger brother's job unfairly easier. There was some disparity between Cain and Abel. The tablet did not state what had started it. Maybe it was simply the fact they stuck so unmovably to their roles rather than alternating. Or perhaps it was a lingering resentment on Cain's part. After all, their mother had died giving birth to Abel, which could have so easily led to the older brother laying the blame at his siblings' feet. Even more so, as losing his wife had been the thing that started their father's eventual decline, causing him to die too. But all was as the Creator willed it, Cain told himself, although it did little to ease the pain of his parents' deaths, and did little to stop what would happen next. Having grown jealous of his younger brother, watching him enjoy his work herding the animals and getting to rest for most of the day while he slaved away, Cain decided to bring his own sacrifice to the Creator. While Abel readied a goat to be offered, much like they had done numerous times before, Cain gathered up the best of his crops for the season, and the pair made their journey up the hill. Presenting the elderly man with both their offerings, he seemed confused as to why there was more this time. It may have been that the Creator interpreted this as greed on the brother's part, bringing him a greater offering in exchange for greater reward, or possibly just out of preference for the type of sacrifice he accepted. But whatever the reason, the Creator seemed to favor Abel's offering of the goat over the crops Cain had presented. The long walk back down into the valley was tense. Both brothers were silent, but it was clear to Abel that something was wrong with Cain. He was seething, practically shaking with anger. Although the younger of the two brothers could never have predicted what his sibling would do next, or that he'd never make it to the bottom of the hill. In a blind fit of rage, Cain lunged at his brother, attacking him out of spite at the fact that his sacrifice had been favored. In his hands, Abel still held the blade used to sacrifice his livestock to the Creator until Cain struck him. The knife clattered to the ground only for the elder of the two brothers to reach for it. Completely overwrought with his anger, all Cain could do was to undo Abel as they had done to the other sacrifices. Maybe then the Creator would favor him instead of his younger sibling. The wise old man was initially horrified to see Cain returning so soon, carrying the body of Abel over his shoulders, which he then dumped at the Creator's feet. No one on Earth had ever killed a fellow human being before. This was completely unexpected. It was only when he saw the saddened look in the old man's eyes and his brother's corpse lying still on the ground that the true gravity of what he'd done hit Cain. He pleaded with the Creator to reverse what he'd done, saying over and over again that he had made a mistake. The old man agreed to oblige, perhaps knowing or just believing that Cain hadn't wanted to kill Abel. Controlling the forces of life and death itself, he resurrected the younger of the brothers, and in the process turned him into a mighty warrior with an inexhaustible supply of weaponry so that he would never be slain again and could always defend himself from harm. However, the same rage that had possessed Cain now took hold of Abel. With his newfound power, he immediately went to exact a terrible, brutal vengeance on his brother. Witnessing the ferocity of the younger man and the horrible wounds Abel inflicted on Cain, the Creator was forced to intervene. As he had done before, he returned Cain to life and repaired the damage to his body, but he saw fit to punish both the brothers for what they had done out of jealousy, anger, and revenge. The old man deemed it so that neither one of them could die. Abel would fall but return to life each time. Meanwhile, the Creator condemned Cain to wander the earth forever, but the man who had once farmed and made the land fertile for crops would never again get to witness the majesty of nature. Wherever he went, the plants around Cain would wither and die, while any wound that was inflicted upon him would be reflected back onto the one who caused it, as a constant reminder of the harm he had done to his little brother Abel, and thus started all of this. After telling the legend in its entirety, Researcher Graves led the site director and senior researchers back to his lab where he had been studying the stone tablet. They arrived just in time to see it crumbling into dust, destroying all the records of what Graves had learned about SCP-073 and SCP-076. The tragic story of how Cain and Abel came to be was lost forever. Want to own an SCP of your own? Go to scpswag.com for premium anomalous merchandise. Now go check out SCP-073 Cain and SCP-076 Abel for more of these ill-fated immortal brothers.